Hello, greetings. Hola, my name is Isolda Peguero, and today I'll be your host for Spotlight, this segment that is presented by the Hispanic Organization of Latin Actors, better known in Spanish as HOLA, que es nuestro saludo de hello. And this month we are honoring women that are thriving in the arts, and to honor the Women's International Month, we have invited a very talented, multifaceted acting Latin actors from Mexican descent. She's originally from Mexico, Paulina de la.parra, who is with us this afternoon today, and she is an actor, a singer, a dancer. The woman does it all. And among her accolades, she has traveled internationally with plays as famous as Wicked, Les Miserables, I hope I pronounced that well, Beauty and the Beast, and so many others. And now she's based in New York City. Welcome to Spotlight, Paulina.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to get into some really fun conversations and not so fun conversations. Let's do it.
Absolutely, let's do it. So we wanted to invite you to a Spotlight because, as I said originally at the beginning of your introduction, we are honoring March, the Women International Month, throughout the whole month, interviewing people of your caliber. And right now, among the things that you have done in New York, you've been living here for 6 years already, right?
Yes, September is gonna be 6 years now.
So welcome. You are a diehard New Yorker by now.
I think I'm gonna wait until 10 years and then I can really say that I am a New Yorker, but I like the sound of that already.
Of course. So what I wanted to ask you, it's about this play that you have been part of, which is called Wounded, and that it tells the story of 5 women that have been victims of femicide. How important is to tell the stories of women that up to today, the 21st century, continue to be, victim of femicide and domestic violence all over the world?
Of course, I think, unfortunately, I think it's sad that we still have to tell the stories. We still have to remind people why it's important to raise your voice and raise awareness in the subject against women violence. Nonetheless, I think this has been a very hard, warming, eye-opening journey for me. Because even though, so I'm from Mexico originally, and right now the femicides are like the biggest thing in Mexico. And it was very eye-opening to me to see that, when I flew over here, yes, I could see the femicides in Mexico and what women go through, but I never in my entire life experienced that in here as well. And that's when I like in my head there was like this light bulb that was like, okay, so this is not only Mexico. This is in reality, this is a pandemic.
Yeah,
the violence that women live all over the world is something that unfortunately is still happening. And I hope with me putting these words in this play up like in the world is gonna at least do a little bit more to inform people about the situation that maybe they heard but they didn't know about it from a Latin voice, or like a person from the US, just having that realization that it's still a thing and it's not in one specific part in the world. I already done my job if people can walk into that show and have a different mind after that.
That is beautiful, Paulina. And tell me more about the characters that you play in Wounded, which is a very simple word, but it's a very powerful word because women are wounded. Some of them, their life are taken away, but they still leave wounds in the people that survive them, their families, their friends, their relatives, the community that they have lived, So tell us about a little bit in depth about the character that you play in that play.
Of course. Well, I was playing a victim of femicide that was killed in 1974. And the other 4 ladies that were in the show as well, they represent a different time period, right? So there's one in 1954, there's one in 2019, which is the most recent one. Mm-hmm. And that shows you that it's not something new. It's not something that it's, been happening like the last 5 years. If anything, it's just been talked more about the subject, but this has been happening all the time. My character, represents this womanhood of generalizing everything. That typical phrase of like, oh, if it's one man, all of men are men, like they're gonna be men, and all of them are not worth it, and they're all trash. Which, in my personal view, I don't think that's true. I think there's good and bad in everything, obviously.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And in my character, it was really hard for me to represent and generalize, like, yeah, this is bad, so everything is gonna be bad. Um, but it's a challenge in embracing that person, and just like as you said, it's wounded. It's such a simple word, but it encapsulates so much, not only the pain that I assure the victims go through, but also the wounds that will never ever heal from the families, from the friends, you
And
know
these are real life stories that have been, portrayed in this play, which is makes them more powerful even. So, now that you said that, I was researching a little bit about it, this interview with you, and it struck me. I have forgotten, I haven't done research about statistics in a while now, but 66,000 women are killed globally, according to the latest report of the United Nations. And 137 women are killed on a daily basis all over the world, every day, by a family member or somebody that they knew, which is even more striking and even sadder if you think about it.
Absolutely. I think we have, at least I had this perception of, femicides. You see it as this very distant situation that you can be on, because you're like, oh, well, if I don't go at night, and with like a mini skirt, or if I
Yeah.
don't show skin, no one's gonna like, you know, say anything to me. I'm gonna be a victim. But the sad reality is that, as you said, a lot of those cases are coming from people that know you, people that say they love you. Now that you're saying it, my character is killed by the husband. Um,
Mm.
so
What is
I,
the character name, if you might share that?
that it's 1974, because once they become the victim, they
They
forget.
become a number. They
It's like
become a
if
number.
exactly, it's like if this situation, this thing that happened to them becomes who they are, instead of just a
Yeah, it dehumanizes them. It dehumanizes them. But putting that aside, which I think is important to talk about the issue, and that the arts are being echoing, something that is part of our reality, even in century 21, like I said originally. Tell me about the change and your adjustment coming from Mexico to the United States, especially the Big Apple, where everything happens, and which is the dream of many actors to come, especially for an actor like you that dances, acts and sings, and that does musical. How how was that transition, and how has the experience enlightened your life as an actor?
Of course. Well, I came here when I was 18, so I was finishing Wicked. I had like, all this like stardom dreams, and I was like, oh, of course, I'm just gonna like step on New York, and the next day I'm gonna be on Broadway.
Lo meto
Like,
en el bolsillo.
yeah, and I was like, I got this. I'm like, I'm good. And then you realize uh, that everything takes time, and it's a beautiful thing to take time and
Mhm.
enrich yourself, and just take it step by step, because I wouldn't trade anything in the world, all the process I had, all the experiences, all the teachers, all the people I've met in the arts, for just like a jump to stardom, right? I don't think I even want that anymore. I think I just want to find art that speaks to community, that makes a change in the world. As if, this is a perfect example. When I was like 4 years in my life in New York, I discovered this absolute passion to not only just do shows to entertain people, but just really doing something that it's gonna stay engraved in people's minds. Not change their mind, because that's not my purpose. Anyone can have their own perspective on things and subjects, but at least to question. I think that's such an important thing to do when you see art, theater, dance, a song, like something that moves you, that makes you question life the way it hasn't been challenged in your mind.
Exactly. And actually also makes you reflect and think about, introspectively about your own life and your purpose in this world. And I think, it's interesting, Paulina, that you said that, because it's all about the journey. We all want success, and people, sometimes, especially in the acting business, it takes a long time. And you will spend a whole lifetime pursuing that dream, and then when you least expect it, boom, it happens. So
Yeah.
I think it's about the journey, and success. It's pursuing your goals and your dreams, and working every day on your craft. Don't you think?
Exactly. As I said before, I think I don't think I ever wanted just the applause and the lights. It definitely sounds tempting, and you're like, yeah, I'll get a couple applauses and
Grand
everything.
innovations. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But for me, what changed is when I realized that it touched something in me, rather than just, how can I put this? It became less about the ego, less about myself, and
Hmm.
more about what was I leaving in the world, which I
Exactly.
know it's very romanticized, with arts and stuff, but it's definitely something that I realized, I started working with women, and I think it's just fascinating to see how little representation there is in the arts, especially Latin women, because that's my perspective, obviously. And
Hmm.
I was just, my life changed. I was like, yes, of course I can do all the shows that, they want me to entertain and stuff, but I don't think I would take a job just to take it. I think now I'm in that
You
position in
have
my
to feel
career
it. You
when I'm
have to
like,
feel it.
why do I want to do it? And is it gonna enrich myself, and is it gonna enrich the world? If if the answer is yes, then I'm like,
You
don't
are a
pay me,
very
don't pay me.
cheers to that with water. You're very
Yeah.
rounded and very mature for your young age. And now that you while I was listening to you, it makes me reflect. We've been going in this country, especially through so many changes, and the misogyny that we have seen, especially that tragedy that happened recently in Atlanta, in and all this hate and the lack of love and empathy. And you discuss about in your biography, when I was reading about you, that not only acting is important to you, but also to have a voice. Is in fact, it caught my attention that you said we'll raise our voices as long as we have life, which is a very powerful statement. And how do you feel as a woman and as a minority, and as a person, that comes from Mexico to this big country, that everybody comes pursuing dreams, to see the lack of love, respect, and the demonization of the Asian American community, because of what's going on right now in the world?
It's such a hard, broad thing to talk about, but I will do my best to give my experience. I think the first year that I was here, as I told you, I came with all these expectations of
Mhm.
how life would represent itself in New York, right? And that's totally valid. I think everybody has expectations and imagines how it's gonna go.
It's good. It's good to have
Yeah,
expectations
yeah,
because you
no,
keep
of course, of
challenging
course.
yourself.
And I was faced with, yes, of course, a lot of loving people that I still have in my life, and I'm like, "Mwah," like I would never change anything. If it wasn't for them, my experience in New York would not be the same. But I
Mhm.
was also faced, not necessarily with hate. I think it was just a lot of, there was a lot of lack in
Ignorance.
education. Yeah,
Mhm.
there was a lot of ignorance.
Mhm.
And I think it's fair to say that they don't do it out of hate. I think that's a very potent, strong word. At least in my experience, I've never had anyone coming from pure hate. I think it just comes from lack of understanding, because when you can't have all the perspectives, then you're only gonna focus in the one that you have, right? And so part of my journey, it's been learning to take a breath and just like sitting back and being like, okay, not everybody has had the same experience I had.
Yeah.
Not everybody has been to Mexico and has this Latin.
Enjoy the flavors and the
Of course,
moments
of
that,
course. I mean, I wish, like I always invite people to Mexico. I'm like, come, I'm gonna teach you everything, like. But I think one of the biggest things for me was learning to respect every person's journey.
Mhm.
It definitely has been hard when people tell you no, because I've had many no's because of my accent, because I don't look Latina enough, or because I don't, all this
You know
things
what?
that are not
Yeah.
important in my eyes to some characters or the story, but it's just there. It's so impregnated in the roots of this country. And I
Mhm.
think part of my job and many other immigrants is to open that a little bit more, to be like, yes, maybe you have that perception of Latina, but hey, have you seen this? Like, this is another type, and this is another type, and just understanding that the world is not black and white, it's all
Yes. Yes.
beautiful, rich colors.
It's a rainbow. It's a rainbow, and break away from those chains of preconceptions. Now, uh, going to acting, how have you? What is your best advice for those performers that perhaps now? Let me rephrase that question. A lot of performers in every field have feel very disillusioned because after the pandemic it's been a whole year stall without being able to work perform, which is what gives performers life and makes them feel alive, and that's their gift, that's their job. And not only have they start making a living, but also it's sort of like taking the breath away from a performer when you cannot present yourself and do what you love best. In this case, Broadway, which has been shot for an entire year already. How do you cope with that? And what is your advice to others that, because there's a lot of people that have gone through a lot of anxiety, there has been suicide, there have been depression. It's been tough, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So what is your, how have you coped with the situation?
Absolutely, I think this has been we know this word by, like, in our heads, is like already engraved. Unprecedented times. It definitely has been such a hard year for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in the arts, like everybody, the pandemic was just like boom on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I always try, depending on the, like, even before pandemic, I always try to keep my light on. And it's hard to say that not all the time is lit by theater. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's very important as an actor, as a singer, as an artist, just in general, to, yes, do your art, but also feed yourself. What
Mm-hmm.
makes you feel alive? And I think something that they fail to tell you in our conservatories is that, yes, it's beautiful to have this gift and to do art for a living and having the privilege to do this, but I think there are also so many beautiful things in life, so many, like, details that you can see day to day. If it's your coffee, if it's a little coffee in the morning that gets you through the day, if it's painting with watercolors, even if you necessarily are not the best painter, just finding those little
Yeah.
things that at the end of the day remind you that you're alive. And another thing that did get me through a lot this year is practicing my craft. I didn't necessarily had to have someone watching me. I was like, okay, today I'm gonna put it in my mind and I'm gonna read a play, or today I'm gonna
Yes.
write something, and not with the purpose of putting it out there or having someone watching you, just to keep that fire lit, to
Exactly.
still feel like an actor, an actress, singer, like an art.
It's important because sometimes it's very easy to get taken away by the dullness of the moment, not having a routine. You have to really have a lot of self-discipline to motivate yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to do this for me, and I'm going to do it even to keep those las neuronas despiertas, and that fire up, like you just said. It's amazing. So tell me more about the what would you say is the role that you have been dreaming of and that maybe all this time off that you have make you work on your craft with that ambition, or have it in your mind, this is going to be good for such and such thing if
Oh,
I ever get to audition for it.
I think my biggest thing right now, I learned how to not idolize uh one project, because then you get into this habit of like, I need it, and it doesn't matter what happens, you like plunge to this, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm very open, I'm very flexible. Of course, I have like, I would love to play Elphaba in New York again.
Yes.
That's one that I'm like in the top, and that will never change. um but other than that, I think I'm just trying to be open to possibilities, to being faithful that what comes my way is what needs to be happening. And all this craft, all this year that I didn't know what to do with myself, and I just kept practicing and warming my voice and doing this exercise that I thought they were not going to have an effect, they do. Every single second you spend on doing your craft, it will pay off. And so for me, it's just like this open heart, like, okay, I prepare 1 year, what's coming.
Listen, it's not about being lucky or being at the right place at the right time, but also it's being prepared. And you can never over prepare yourself, because it's not such a thing as luck. Opportunities come and go, and you never know when it's going to knock your door. But having worked on your craft and keep it that fire up and alive, keeps you on your toes. And just for those that maybe are saying, what is alphabet? Is that the person that you portray in Wicked when you were traveling with a Wicked, but you would love to do it here in New York? Hey,
I
joining a universe, you never know. It
I'm
can happen.
gonna put it out there. If anyone wants some Mexican alfaba, sign me in.
You are there. So tell me your experience about working with I understand that the funds that have been made from Wounded are going to be donated at 20% to the Malala Foundation, correct?
Yes, that is correct. I
So
was
tell me about that, and why is that important? Of course, we all know that Malala has done a lot of work to empower women and to educate them, especially in the Middle East and all that kind of stuff. But how did that partnership came about?
of course. I was actually, when I got cast in Wounded, I was, yes, really excited, but I was wondering, like, why not choose maybe like a foundation against violence for women, or feminicide, something very related. And I came to the realization that all these social problems, all these pandemic subjects that we cannot get rid, even if time goes on and on, it's because of the lack of education.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really like a aha moment. I was like, of course, you cannot expect to change something just like that, just to say like, oh, that is bad, but rather to educate your kids, educate your boys to like, consent is such a big thing. Um,
Mm.
and I'm obviously focusing on this subject because that's what Wounded is about. But education is just so important. And what we did, well, not me, but Imaginarium Theater, the one that produced Wounded, wanted to donate 20% of the tickets to Malala Foundation, which specializes in education for girls all around the world. And that's when I was like, okay, yes,
Yeah,
I
amen,
think that
amen.
was the,
I'm gonna raise my voice.
yes, I think that was that is the root of everything. The education that we give the next generations, including ourselves. I think it's a little bit harder to re-educate or relearn some things as you go and as you grow older.
Yeah,
But
that has
all
been
these
ingrained
generations
in
of
you.
girls and boys, they definitely have to have that root of, you know, all the things and problems that we have currently in the world.
And you bring up a very important point, because we focus on the women, but we need to also teach our boys from very young ages. And it's part of the machista culture, that we attract everything that the boys do as permissible. Boys will be boys. That's no longer the case. We need to raise awareness when they are growing up, before it's too late. That there's equality in between women and men, and that you have to treat each other with dignity and respect.
Absolutely. I think luckily, well, not luckily. it had to be this way a long time ago. But finally, I think women have the power to raise our voices and just ask for what we need and ask for the respect and equality that we have to have. Is just not debatable. It's it's got to happen. One, even if it takes one day, 1 year, 10 years, you know, that's why we're still here, and that's why we're still raising our voices, and probably it's not going to be the last time, but we are making progress. I like to believe that maybe it doesn't show day to day, but if you think about it, I mean, I don't know if you knew this, but in Mexico just the past year it was illegal to send pictures of a woman's body without their consent, which is, you know, if you think about it, it's like, was that not illegal? In Mexico was not illegal, and just this past year was approved.
Yes,
It
yes.
was because we women showed up, we raised our voices, we just threw ourselves out there saying it's not enough and it's
No,
not okay.
it takes a village. It takes a village. And I love the fact, Paulina, that what a beautiful thing to have that activism shown through the arts, because people can relate better when they hear the storytellers saying it in a more humanistic and humane way that people can relate to. So before we say goodbye to this beautiful segment, anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to add?
Well, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think this is such an open space to talk about something as important as this is. And if you're listening to this, let your fire wherever it comes from. Also, if you need to take days off, I think that's very important to mention as well. I like kept thinking about it while I was saying it. It's also okay to rest. We live in such a
Yeah, true.
fast-paced life that I think it's okay to take time for yourself, relocate yourself, because that also gives you fire to keep pushing and to keep
Re-energize,
raising your
re-energize.
voices.
Cargar
Exactly.
las baterías. You
Sí,
know,
sí, sí.
and it's true because we live in this society that it's very competitive, and me, myself included. If I'm not doing something, I feel like I'm wasting my time. That's not the case. You need to have some sanity and level of being restful in order to be productive.
Of
You have a
course.
point.
Absolutely. That's where most of the fire also comes from, to keep, you know, asking people, men, women, to just raise your voices, to be, you know, the same, be brothers, sisters to each other rather than a
Absolutely.
competition.
Absolutely. Well, Paulina, thank you so much. We've been having this amazing conversation with the talented actor, singer, dancer, Paulina de la.parra. Check her out in her Instagram, Paulina de la.parra, which is very simple. You also have your website. So we're hope, and I'm going to keep my finger crossed that when Broadway finally opens, you can go and swing by Wicked. Hey,
Just,
I'm here.
I put it out there. I worked this year.
And if not, whatever God and the universe brings to your space, it's welcome, because as long as we're happy doing what we love, that's what really matters. And success, in my view, now that I'm aging, it's being happy and being comfortable in your own skin. So thank you so much. This has been a segment of Spotlight, presented to you by the Hispanic Organization of Latin Actors, better known as HOLA. So, Paulina, gracias por pasar a visitarnos y hasta la próxima.
Gracias a ustedes. Muchas, muchas gracias. Thank you.
Until the next time. Bye bye now.